And last, actually. Our invocation, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Please stand for the invocation. Bow your head. Let us pray. Life is short, and we do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who travel the way with us. So let us be swift to love, make haste to be kind, and go in peace to serve the Lord. Amen. Amen. Join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in the four-way test. Of all the things we think, say, and do,
is it truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, John. Wayne.
Well, we have Steve Mackler here from the Guilford Club.
I'm sorry, who's that again, Wayne?
Steve Mackler is here from the Guilford Club. We have Bob Holbrook here, who's sort of a member, but not quite a guest. And Mark Bowers is here visiting us as a guest of David.
I'm a nameless member. You skipped 3 or 4 steps. As you all know, the 7-day letters have gone out and have been received, and Mark, Littrell, and Rick Martin are our new members, and we'll be inducting them probably next week. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. Dale?
We've got a couple of weeks of birthdays here. On the 22nd, Blake Hunt celebrated his birthday. On the 28th, Ken Kinka will have a birthday. The 29th, Dennis Marcotte will be a year older. And David Crabtree on the 31st. Let's see. Matthew Foster is going to have a Gate City Rotary anniversary on the 31st. It will be his 2nd year. And on the 19th of last week, 19th, David Crabtree celebrated his 6th year with Gate City Rotary. And the wedding anniversaries, Dan Farley and Margaret will be celebrating their 24th anniversary. Mary Kay will be celebrating their 24th anniversary on the 22nd.
Congratulations. Do we have any announcements this morning?
Oh yeah, so the past president's committee has received just a few grant requests. So today's supposed to be the deadline. I think I'll soften that just a little bit. If you want to get those things in, a paper copy and or an email copy. An email copy would be great because it's harder to lose those. So I lost one a couple of years ago. Got in big trouble. So don't let that happen to me. We have a $10,000 budget. Yes, sir, Les.
And the forums online.
I sent it out yesterday. I sent it out before, and I'll send it out again. How about that?
If you send it out.
Okay. The only real rule is you got to be a member in good standing.
Oh, never mind.
When I saw your face, sorry about that.
Good standing means you can stand up.
And you have to be directly involved. You have to be doing something. You can't just say, hey, so-and-so's a good cause, okay? I mean, those are pretty simple rules. The whole point is to reward the good works of the people in the club. That's the whole point. Thank you.
I don't know if you guys, some of you guys have been to the JDORF Gala. Well, this year, It's in Greensboro, to February 24th, and my son is going to speak there. He had been diagnosed on like June 12th with type 1 diabetes, and what I'm hoping we can do is I want to fill a table for the event. If we could get fellow Rotarians, some of you guys have been there numerous times, so I'll send an email out and see if we can fill up 8 to 10 tables. That'd be great. It's Saturday, February 24th. All right, thanks.
It's an event to remember.
Tried to get my son to come, but he, 17-year-old, hard to get up.
Are you gonna be speaking that night?
Yeah, they'll come up.
We've got a lot of exciting stuff that's coming this second part of the year. We've got a district conference and sign-ups are gonna be coming out here probably next couple of weeks. Great service projects, so although we don't have a lot of announcements today, we've got a packed full calendar the rest of this year, so look forward to all your participation. Anything else?
The feud.
Oh, that's coming. Respond to the fun yourself. Mr. Lewis and Mr. Reynolds fan. All right. I'll try to keep a theme going, whatever time of the year or whatever. So, has anybody had the flu or been sick this year?
Dale has.
Wow, that's awesome. I had it. Started last 2 weeks after Rotary. I left here and went to bed. Was in bed for 4 days, so y'all don't even notice I did. All right, the subject is what public place are you likely to catch a cold or a flu? All right, there's 7 answers. Rotary, play. All right, what's all? Bing, bing, bing.
What was it? What's the answer? His office.
It's in his office. I'm kidding. All right.
Let's go with that hospital.
Ding, ding, ding. Number 2 answer. How about today? Come on, guys. Number 1 answer. That would probably fall under school. No, it's not. Let's get loud on that third one.
I say airplane.
Airplane, number 3. Yeah, last answer. Number 7. Ding, ding, ding. So we've got school, number 1, 2, hospital, 3, airplane, 4, doctors. You're missing number 5 and 6. 7 was work. Get one more answer. Come on, Chris. Nobody's going to participate. That's not all. All right. 1 answer left. There's actually 2 answers left.
Jim.
What's their answer?
Honestly, I know how critical you guys are. I'm going to go with an X. Let's get it going. It was, now here's where I'll get ridiculed. Shopping center. Public transportation. Congratulations.
Shopping center is different than grocery store.
All right, Buster. Ready for $100.
Happy dollars, that's what I'm talking about.
Humbug.
All right. Cookie!
I just wanted to tell Steve Scott how much I appreciate him working with me and Potter Brothers. He's got the prettiest rental unit you'll ever want to see. And then my old college roommate, James Edwards, is just bought house number 4 up in the mountains, and we're gonna do work for him up in Boone. So I appreciate both of you guys.
You can ride on.
Don't mind those houses, James.
Oh, first, thanks for having me as a new member. I got a couple of happy dollars. Last Friday afternoon, my oldest daughter gave birth to a set of twins.
Whoa.
It's Elma Ruth.
$2.
Yep. I gave $2. Elma Ruth was 6 pounds 13 ounces, and Henry Hale was 7 pounds 6 ounces. Everybody's healthy, happy home, and congratulations. All right.
I had a pretty neat experience last week. I had to give a lady a ride. Sometimes didn't know it was going to happen, but I really gained a lot from the ride, and it really made me especially proud to be a Rotarian. She shared with me that she grew up in Burlington, and evidently back in the day, in the 60s, there was a pretty big orphanage there at Elon College, and that's where she was raised. And she said the happiest time in her life growing up, and really about the only thing they got back then, there weren't a lot of people giving as much obviously as they do now, was when the Rotary brought the presents in, and we got to talking. She was talking about the Lifesaver books and all that neat stuff that I had thought about in 100 years. It just made me feel really proud to be a Rotarian.
So I got 2 things, very important. There it is, $5, Buster. Enduring Gratitude, February 3rd, we're going to have 110 veterans, mostly wounded, out. We need a few more volunteers. We need money. We need help. I'm putting in a grant, but please come join us. It will be a day. If you come out and help as a volunteer, we need 200 volunteers plus to handle these veterans. Because a lot of them are wounded. They need help getting around and all this. We're going to shoot sporty clays and then live pheasants off the tower. February 3rd, I'll send out some more information on it, but please join me if you will. Second, small world story. So Wilder's in Chile, the Chileans call it Chile, by the way, because we met one last night. So Wilder's, we're on the way to Raleigh, put him on the plane Tuesday 2 weeks ago. He gets a text, and Professor Rubelar says, I'm so sorry, you were going to stay with me for the first 2 weeks until you could find an apartment or a dorm or whatever moved in, and but I've got relatives coming, and so I'm going to put you up with another professor. Well, by the time we put him on the plane, you know, Carrie's calmed down a little bit because this is all planned. So he texts us from Miami. The other professors decided that it's not proper because she's a single female and she couldn't have a single male in the house even though she's like 68 years old. It wouldn't look right. And so now Wilder has nowhere to live. And so they take him Wednesday morning when he gets there, drop him off at a hostel. And Wilder's not liking this hostel thing. It's not, he's got everything he has for 6 months with him, but you can't put it on your back and walk off with it.
It's not the Grove Park Inn.
It ain't however, I'm like, get your butt in an Uber and get over to the so-and-so hotel, the nicest hotel down there, $129 a night. Got a concierge, we fixed him up. Meantime, Kerry calls a tenant who lives here and goes to UNCG. He's in his 40s. His name is Rodrigo Pontacanilla, or something close to that. And Kerry calls me and says, I'm Kerry Person, I'll run the company that you rent from, and we need some help in Chile. Is there any way you can help us? Well, yes, Miss Person, I can. And so he goes into all this. We take him out to dinner last night. He is the former Minister of the Interior for the President of Chile. He grew up in Concepcion. He went to the university. He knows the whole thing. His family lives there. Wilder has moved into an apartment with one of his friends, Jose. I can't remember what his name is, but it's a 4-bedroom apartment. And one has a Chilean girl, one has Wilder, one has Jose, and a really cute girl from Australia moves in February down there. So, you know, like Sometimes you just come up, you know?
Is there a way we should form a corporation and invest in Wilder? He's just everybody put our money into it.
Yeah.
Somebody's been in the news.
Yeah.
Not me, I hope. So, well, I'll tag on the Small World story. In the happiest place on earth in a recent visit on the Small World ride, which, by the way, if it breaks down, luckily the music keeps playing. And maybe it was Grandpappy Lewis behind us because the grandmother was narrating "It's a Small World" in him. Really loudly explaining every country, what this one was doing, what that one, and it was stuck. And then she got to this one, and she goes, "I don't know, what country do you think that is?" And Grandpappy said, "Hell."
Damn.
One day early, we are really excited about the visitor. We get flying in tomorrow. As you know, we've been hosting foreign exchange students quite a few times. The very first student we ever hosted 27 years ago is coming and visit us. At that time he was a kid, 16 years old, from Australia. Was not a Rotary at that time. We lived in Australia just before. He was the son of friends of ours. We've seen him twice since, once at his wedding, and once when his sister also came to live with us as a student. So he's from Australia, lives in Jakarta, Indonesia now, works for a steel company and has to be here for business and going to spend the weekend with us.
This is for my wife and one of our dogs. She's always been involved in rescue programs and also therapy dogs. And we had a couple of Goldens who passed away about 3 years ago. So we were down to 2 dogs. We were looking for, Beth was looking for another dog, and she wanted to get one that would qualify for a therapy dog. So she found a breeder in Virginia, and they did all this interviews. She denied any association with me so she could get a dog. And so she got this dog about a year and a half ago, and the breeder said, "We want you to show the dog in AKC shows." And she said, "Well, I don't want to commit to that," Beth said, "but I'll try it." And so she started to try it, and then our dog, who's about to turn 2, went to a number of shows, and I guess you get points, and you have to win so many tournaments, and he became an AKC champion about a month ago.
Wow. I smell collusion. Yeah, he's doing therapy work for everybody.
Bobby, give a happy dollar.
And we're down to dog story.
I'm waiting to retire from the
So Grandma says, "Sometimes I don't think you're even listening to me." And Grandpappy thinks, "That's a really strange way to start a conversation."
That's been the best crop of happy dollars. Wasn't that great? Aren't you glad to be back in Rotary today? And Tony, feel free. I wish you could bring your exchange student from 40 years or 25 years ago to our meeting next week.
No, probably not. He's born again. So am I.
And Ben, thank you for your happy dollar. Sometimes it is a small world, and you just never know what we do as Rotarians, where that pays dividends going forward in the future. Well, I think everybody in the club knows that Bobby is a very accomplished runner, and Chris, you're a very capable runner yourself. And I think when I heard about the story that they're getting ready to tell you, when I heard about this run last year, I was really intrigued. This run for runners. This event had it all. It was adventurous, it contained challenge, it has beautiful scenery, and it's audacious. I mean, it had a big helping of audacity, this event. So Bobby and Chris are going to tell you a little bit about their run in the Grand Canyon. Guys, come on up and tell us about it.
A lot about that trip isn't suitable for a Rotary meeting, so it's going to be a short speech.
Back in 2014, I put out a few years before that, I went out to Las Vegas for a meeting, and my wife was with me. We drove over to the Grand Canyon. I'd never seen it. Got to talking to people, and I knew there was a trail, and I thought, it'd be fun to run across there. I heard people. 2014, I floated an email to a bunch of runners, and about 12 people said, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I'll do that. And then it turned out there was one guy that volunteered. Eddie Wooten is the sports editor here in Greensboro for the paper, and he's a good runner. He went out there with me, and here's a little.
And he almost died.
We trained, and there's a trail there that goes across that the mules take people down and to Phantom Ranch at the bottom, and then you go to the other side. It's really pretty. It's been there since turn of the century or something. Dynamited. It's almost like a shelf in place.
He's okay.
So anyway, Eddie trained, and he went out there with me, and there's a book we bought down there. Which edition? They come out with a new one every year because they keep adding to it. There's been hundreds of people die out there, but not many of them from falling. Most of the time it's people unprepared that didn't take water and didn't know what they were getting into, and they end up dying out there. But it happens. It happens. And then there's a little sign at the edge there, warning, and it tells you don't dare try to go to the river and back up to the top in the same day. And so every time I've been out there, we say, oh, we're not going to do that. We're going to go to the other side and come back. But there's when I went out with Eddie. And Eddie, bless his heart, we trained, and I knew there were going to be some struggles. And long story short, he made it to the other side, and I had to find him a ride. I had to come back alone, and we were much slower than we thought. And my poor, there I am on the other side on my way back. My poor wife's waiting, and I'm hours late, and it's dark, and she's sitting on the edge of this canyon wondering, where the hell am I? And there's no cell phones or anything, and I finally showed up in the dark.
It's only 23 miles back from the other side, but it's a 210-mile drive. So Bobby and Eddie made it back about the same time.
Eddie made it back about the same time. So, all right, fast forward. But here's this group of characters that I assembled, and there's Chris with me on the right. The guy on the far left, a guy named Andres, is from Venezuela. He's a surgeon down in Sampson County. And Justin, and next to him, second from the left, is a banker from down east. And they're young guys. I mean, Andres is 40, and Justin's like 33 or 4. Ernest in the middle there, I know him. He's from here in Greensboro. And this kid Jake there in the blue was a friend of theirs, and Chris and me. So some of us didn't even know each other. We just sort of friend to friend. But so we put it together. They all said they'd go. We spent a bunch of time, Chris, I don't know if you want to talk about Pilot Mountain and some of our adventures up there.
Yeah, so a lot of people ask how you train for something like this. And there's really no way to replicate the elevation around here, but Pilot Mountain's about the closest you can get. There's a trail from the little station down at the base of it called the Grindstone, which is 3 miles up and 3 miles down. And any runner that's done any kind of long distance stuff will tell you that that downhill is really worse than the uphill, and downhill will shred your legs. So the Grand Canyon run, you start with a brutal 6-mile descent into the canyon. So we knew we had to be ready for downhill, and so we just went to Pilot Mountain. Did most of that training during the summer because the run itself was in the fall. So we went up there 5 or 6 times, I guess.
I made 8 trips up there, but and some of it was good. It was in August, and it was over 100 at some of those days. And we did, I think the longest we did was 42 miles, which the Grand Canyon, the route we did was about 44 miles, I guess. So it. Yeah, we kind of simulated it. And like I said, it's the downhill you're training for. You can run uphill all day long. The downhill is what will kill you.
Really?
It's the furthest sport when the uphill's easy. Really? Oh yeah, that's the easy part.
So here we are the day before. We flew out to Phoenix and drove up there, rented a van, and did a little sightseeing in the afternoon before we started the run. that's pretty much the route we took.
Yeah, if you look right there, that trench is really what you're running through to get over to the north side. And the first decision we had to make, there's actually two trails from the south side that go down. One's Bright Angel, which most of the people, I think most people probably take that. That's the one that's closest to you know, all the touristy stuff. But South Kaiba, that's what we elected to go down. It's a lot steeper, but the views are, you know, are supposedly a lot better. So we elected just to go do our out and back from South Kaiba.
So there we are, about 3 in the, we got up and we were in the hotel about 3 in the morning. But we planned it so we finished before the sun went down and we could see the sunset. So this was about 3 in the morning.
Well, you also have to beat the mule trains down. There's, you know, every day there's mule trains that take supplies down to, and people down to Phantom Ranch, which is, you know, down the, at the end of Bright Angel and kind of where Bright Angel and South Kaiba meet. So you definitely have to beat those. You don't want to be behind the mules.
So here we are at the edge, getting ready to start our track. Of course, it's just pitch dark. You really don't see anything. You just sort of run in. You know, there's sort of a void at places. You know, there's probably thousands of feet down there, but you don't see it.
It's really weird though, because you can feel it. I mean, you know, you can feel just there's nothing beside you, and it's pitch black out there. We did have a decent moon that, you know, that morning, which is good.
Yeah, and the sun was starting to come up. We're near the bottom at this point, and the sun's coming up, and there was a good shot of the moon, and it was getting kind of cool. And as you get kind of winding down, you start to hear the river, you know, so you know you're getting close. You can hear the Colorado River.
How many hours, Bobby, till you start seeing the sun come up?
Oh, we got to the bottom in, you know, a couple hours, less than 2 hours.
Yeah, it seemed like it took a while, but it really didn't. I mean, a couple of us went out ahead. At 205 pounds, I'm not a great uphill runner, but I'm a really good downhill runner. So me and Jake, I guess, went out.
Y'all went on ahead.
Yeah, we crushed it going down, but yeah, I mean, everybody kind of caught up, you know, 5:30 or so, right whenever the sun was coming up.
The one little logistical thing in the night, there's switchbacks and all, and there's these puddles, and the puddles are full of donkey pee, is what they are. That's the only time the donkeys can stop, and when they stop, they pee. So at night, you're having to, you don't want to step in the puddles.
It's not rainwater. When he says puddles, I mean, we're not talking about like a shallow little place. It's like a pool. I mean, they all kind of stop in the same spot, and just, yeah, it's not good.
Well, when can I go?
Get a picture of that? So you come to the bottom. This is the bottom, and the sun was up. That's Phantom Ranch. It was closed. It wasn't open yet. But you know, people ride the donkeys down and stay in cabins and all, and they have a little store and they feed them and stuff. So we stopped at the ranch and kind of regrouped, and the sun came up. That was one of the cabins.
Yeah, there's not much down there.
That's Justin. And then from there, it's probably the easiest part of the run. You're heading back up the North Rim, and you're really just following this stream. And it's gentle. We had about 8 or 9 miles of just easy running. You know, you're just following this little stream. That's the easy part before you head up to the North Rim. The South Rim, where we started, was about 7,000 feet above sea level, 6,500.
Yeah.
The river at the bottom is 2,000 feet above sea level, and the North Rim is about 8,000 feet.
Yeah.
So it's all high altitude stuff, and I mean, and that's the one part we couldn't train for, and it does make a difference on breathing.
Yeah. It's about 6 miles to get down from the South Rim to the base, and it's about 5 miles to get, when your tough climb starts on the north side, it's about 5 miles up, you know, from there. But I think all of us were feeling pretty good by the time we, you know, started the ascent on the north side. I mean,
Yeah,
Is that the trail over there with people?
Yeah. That's us. Remember, that's over there on the left.
Bobby, what kind of pace do y'all run?
Oh, we were, you know, God. When we were running, probably
6
10
miles.
miles, you know, and then every 6 or 8 miles, there's water. There's a spring coming out of, with a spigot, really, coming out of the side of the mountain. So we'd run 6 or 8 miles, we'd stop and you refill your water bottles, and some people, you know, a few ahead, and we'd always regrouped, and then we'd start off again. So you stop for about 5-10 minutes every 6 or 8 miles. I mean, we weren't, you know, we weren't in a hurry. I mean, why would you want to rush? You know, it wasn't like it was a race or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the little trail. There's Chris right there in back. What were you doing in the back?
The guy that took the pictures in the back.
He wasn't running when I took that picture.
Yeah.
You've got the descent and the ascent, but in the middle, what's the flat part? How long is the semi-flat part?
Well, that's what he was saying.
Yeah, it's about 10 miles.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's about 10 total, you know, until you really, then you
start
really
to
get it. Went back up. Yours truly.
What are you carrying in your pack, Bobby?
We carried all our food. You know, you got to eat. And we had sandwiches, snacks, and powders and stuff. And then, of course, it was cold when we started. It was below freezing. There was frost on the windshield. And then during the day down in the canyon, I mean, it got up in the upper 80s, pushing 90. So you were shucking clothes, putting them back, and you put them back on when you head back up. So the pack was, you know, all your stuff. And then, yeah, there's a little trail along the edge of the creek, and it was, yeah, that part was easy. There's one where we stopped to regroup. You see all the food on the table, telling dirty jokes and things. Drinking beer. That's another, you know, little waterfalls in the creek, and then we're starting to head up there. You can see a waterfall in the middle of that picture. We're heading up the north rim there. Some of the scenery. Down the bottom, there's not a whole lot to see. You're kind of boxed in. It's starting to get prettier. It's that same waterfall. There we're heading up the north rim, and you know, there's a ledge, and I mean, it's rocky, and parts of it aren't runnable. I mean, it's just, you know, and you certainly don't want to trip, because it's, they wouldn't find you.
And that's actually true. I mean, the only way they can find people that fall down in there is that, you know, they might see the buzzards and be able to find you that way.
That book, Death in the Canyon, it talks about the hundreds of people that died. Very few people die from falling in the canyon. I mean, and the ones that do, a lot of them were taking pictures.
Step back.
But the majority were people that went for a hike and then got off the trail, didn't take any water, they were wearing street shoes, they had nowhere, you know, it just, you know, unforgiving. And the majority of it was just stupidity, really.
Are the trails easy to follow?
Oh, you can't get lost.
There was a couple coming down the north side. That it was a young couple, and they were, you know, dressed like they had gotten out of a Starbucks in New York City, and they were about 3 miles down, and the guy was starting to look, you know, kind of upset, and he's like, "How much farther is it down? I need a refill on my coffee." I was like, the nearest coffee shop's 16 miles that way.
John, there's some puddles over there.
I think here's that's the, you know, you can see we're just jogging. Chris, you're walking again.
And I mean, my strategy was, I ran all the downhills fast. The flats, you know, just kind of moderate, and anything steep, I fast hiked. And you know, there's section. I think that was probably, you know, most of us. I mean, the sections going up, you can't. I mean, you can't run. You know.
Yeah, there's
some of those trails.
They're just not runnable. Truth be known, they're a fast hike and a run. About I've run mountain races before. I'm running my tail off, and there's some guy next to me walking, and he was passing. Taking little bitty steps. That's the north rim as we're heading up. There's a couple of tunnels there. There's one tunnel as you get near the top that they blasted out. That's the north looking back to the south. Here we are at the north rim. We stopped and had lunch. I mean, that's where we ate our sandwiches and all. I don't know, it was probably around noon, was it? 11? Maybe we got there about 11 o'clock, yeah. I guess. And it was cold. Wind was howling there. We had to sort of put our clothes back on. Here you can see the
Bob, I'm
trail.
trying to figure out exactly where you guys are. So where, I mean, you South Rim, how'd you get there from? Did you go into Vegas and drive over?
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
A little bit closer. You just go north from Phoenix, about 3 hours. There. Flagstaff's about 40 miles away.
You might not have noticed, you know, because the early pictures were in the dark, but you're really kind of going through 3 ecosystems. You know, you start out in the desert on the south side, and then, you know, you're down into a river basin, and then when you come up, you're in a pine forest. I mean, it is really stark, the differences between, where you take off and then, just 20 some miles later, you're in a completely different area.
You can see, here's the trail, you can sort of see it winding around down there at the bottom, there's a footbridge there. Another.
Did you guys come up to the North Rim Lodge, isn't that the name of it?
The lodge is a few miles away. Where we came up was just a parking lot and a water fountain.
Yeah.
The lodge, I think, was around the corner somewhere, a few miles. There's one, that's down at the bottom.
Is the trail pretty clearly marked? I mean, that
Oh,
certainly
yeah.
looks so.
Oh,
Yeah, you don't get
you
lost.
can't miss it. I mean,
It's a very well maintained single track trail all the way across. Yeah, you can't miss it.
You only run into donkeys on the south side, not the north side?
there's donkeys on both. We saw evidence of donkeys here. They have it on both. But we never saw the donkeys because we, timed it to get they say it's a mess and you can't get around them. I mean, it's a big train. So we timed it where we didn't have to fool with them. This is on our way back up the North Rim. Another little video, and you can see that trail. I mean, some of it's just really nice. It's really dry. It's a desert almost. Not much wildlife. I mean, it's just stuff lives under rocks. There's a video in here. There's one big snake that I almost stepped on. I didn't even see it. The guy behind me saw it.
And we saw a ram, I guess.
I can see the ram. Some of you guys.
Yeah,
Did you see it?
Yeah, we saw a ram.
That was just before Chris, you passed out, right?
I did not have to get airlifted.
That's the north side there. Some of the, like you said, the forest trees.
How did you pick this spot to
It's really the only spot that you can go over and back. There aren't any other.
Yeah, you've got two options on the south side, but they converge in the middle, and then you have one option to get out.
Okay.
So you better be careful
Bobby,
with
you
the
got some
videos.
Were you the only one that carried the sticks, Bobby?
No, all of us had sticks, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they make a world of difference, especially when you're on those, little ledges and all. It's great to run with sticks. That's the footbridge across the Colorado River at the bottom. That's another view, like I showed a while ago, of the trail. There we are. That's before the run.
Yeah.
After picture.
The river's just mud down there at the bottom. It's really, certain times of the year it's not. It's coming back up the North Rim. There's the sun going down, and we're getting near the top. But we kind of regrouped at the bottom before we went back up, and I think I was the last one out of the village. They had cold lemonade. I was enjoying that. And I think Justin and I were the last to leave, and you and somebody else took off, and we made a mile or two up, and there's these cute girls sitting on a rock, little college girls or something were hiking, and I said, was there a couple guys that came through here a while ago? Yeah, and I said, was one of them kind of tall? And they said, yeah. I said, he wasn't looking to.
Yeah. So I've done a lot of races. I mean, a lot of marathons. Some ultra distance stuff, and after that experience, I don't know that I have ever truly bonked until coming back up the south side. I mean, it was awful. I mean, that climb out. I mean, and I remember at the base of it, Jake, that younger guy from Georgia, he's a really good ultra runner, and he said, "Well, guys, it's only a 10K from here." And I remember it like, but it's crazy when you're who's been to the Grand Canyon? Has anybody been down into it? Just because most people I think see it from the rim. And a lot of people, I guess most people just don't make it down in there. I mean, it is pretty daunting to get down to the bottom, even if you're just doing a day hike. You're looking at a grueling 12-mile hike just to get to the base and get back out of it. And it is tough, but I'd say it is an experience like no other. You know, you hear about the energy of a river and, you know, the energy of a canyon and all that, and it's so true. I mean, when you're down there and you're looking out of it, I mean, it's one thing to be at the top and look down and realize that you're looking down a mile into the earth, but it's quite another to be in, you know, at the base and looking a mile up. I mean, I remember when we started the ascent out, you know, on the south side coming back up, I looked up and I'm like, where are we walking to? You know, so I mean, you're at the base and it takes you 6 miles of, you know, switchbacks just to get, you know, the mile up. And so, you know, I'm looking up and I mean, it seems like it's a bazillion miles to, you know, the other side, but I mean, you know, in reality it's only 6, but it's amazing.
Yeah, it was. I hung back with Chris and Ernest if we were back, and then at some point with a few miles to go, I went ahead up and and then
Ernest was Ernest is probably in the best shape of any of us, but he has very, very little body fat. And he, I didn't think he was going to make it out of there. I mean, I thought he was going to spend the night down there, and we were going to have to
after
hike
I
food.
finished, I doubled back and went back down and found him. And Ernest was curled up on the side of the trail in this little fetal position.
And I'm like, you know, you didn't want to leave the guy there.
Chris, go ahead, I'll take care of Ernest. Chris went on, but Ernest just was cranked up. His stomach was. Ernest has intestinal issues.
Ernest experienced every bathroom along the way, and some not bathrooms.
Is doing this run a known thing, or did you come up with it?
You can do it on your own. I mean, you know.
Do lots of people do it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say lots, but it's a public park. I mean, it's wide open. You pay at the, you know, 10 miles away when you drive into the Grand Canyon Park, and you can do whatever you want once you're there. So, I mean, you know, there's hikers.
So you don't have to do this. You can
It's optional. It's very optional.
I want to show you.
But a lot of people do it every year. It's a known
record.
What's the record?
There is a record.
What we're going to show you is a couple of weeks after we left, this guy broke the record. I want to play this little bit of audio.
Anybody do it barefoot?
Yeah, well, probably. There is, so this is the guy after he was halfway through. He had just gone up the North Rim, and just listen to what he says to his crew chief.
Are you trying? Tired. The timeout's going to be completely awful. Yeah. But I think I can roll this descent and be a better story.
All right, and I'm going to take you to, this is what the descent looks like.
Just 2 water bottles.
Yeah, but they had camera people all over.
Gotta be 2 people.
Yeah, so that gives you a good sense of what the switchbacks look like.
The guy filming him is a pretty good runner, it looks like.
Keep the trail clean.
All right, so I guess we got time for maybe a question or two, but.
So if you got hurt down there, what's the plan?
Ooh, didn't think about that.
Ranger?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's lots of people, and I mean, they come get you. I mean, you know, hikers have trouble, people, you know.
Mule will come get you.
Yeah. Mule, something, I mean, you know, there would be somebody. We didn't actually have an evacuation plan.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it turns out about 3 miles in, one of our guys turned his ankle pretty good. But, you know, he's very experienced, so he knew how to handle it, and, you know, he ended up making it through fine.
So what's your next adventure?
Looks like Bryce Canyon. There's a race out there in June, so it looks like that's what we're looking at.
50 mile and 100 mile.
Can somebody put a sign up Genius on that?
What was the record the guy broke?
He did it in what, 6 hours?
I don't want to talk about it.
Like
So,
6
yeah,
hours.
it's 6 hours.
Unbelievable. I mean, he was running like, you know, unbelievable. He's
It's
running
ridiculous.
sub 7-minute miles in the canyon. I did it.
Yeah.
He's the best in the world.
It's smoother out there, just as rocky.
What?
Bryce.
Bryce, you know, the pictures I've seen, it's a little bit smoother.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
What are you gonna say?
I was going to say a similar story. We ran into those young ladies and they said, that guy's looking a little rough. I climbed Kilimanjaro years ago, and as a prep climb, I went to Colorado with a friend of mine, and he was not very prepared for this hike. And right towards the end, when it started getting a little misty and the rocks were slippery, I was like, let's turn around. We were only maybe 1,000 feet from the summit, and I was like, you know, I don't want to break my ankle before this big climb. He's like, no way, Jim, we flew out here, we've been hiking for 12 hours, we're going to the top. I'm like, you're right. So I'm climbing hand over fist, I get to the summit, and I'm there about 15, 20 minutes, no Dave. Finally, a young lady comes up and I says, hey, did you see a guy down there in a blue jacket? She says, yeah, he's not coming.
You screaming, close enough.